Have you ever argued with someone really passionately? Maybe you were so set on your topic or agenda item that in the moment of that argument, you couldn't even imagine setting that aside to listen. I get it. We all have passions. I mean, let's think about this. We tell our kids from an early age that they should figure out what those passions should be. We say, how could you be an advocate for someone or something? Or how can that thing that brings you joy, like I talked about a couple days ago in relationship to Romans 12, how can that thing be something you'll talk with another person about until you're blue in the face? After reading this far into the book of Romans, you might be thinking, Paul, he is that guy. He is the one who wrote letter after letter to these communities, painting pictures of what the old life was before Jesus and what the new life could be now because of Jesus. He painted those pictures in a million different ways in order to communicate it over and over and over again. And you would not be wrong to notice that Paul is arguing both against some things and for other things. But think about this as well. In your life, what about those times where we argue just for the sake of arguing? Be honest, you know what I'm talking about. There are times when the argument is more fun than the things you're actually arguing over. They could be simple things like the way the dishwasher is loaded that doesn't meet your expectations. Yes, I confess that's my public apology to my kids and husband that I get overreactive about this sometimes. But that argument, it could be a lot more serious. And in some instances, it's not even the topic, I don't think, that's serious, but the way we do it. I had the terrible realization the other day that even though the next presidential election is not technically for more than a year, we are already seeing political candidates front and center on the news. And I was reminded when I saw that about how ugly American politics has gotten over the last decade. I can picture pretty easily those stories on the news of people screaming at one another over what in their mind is the right way to be an American and what way is the wrong way. And I think we have to step back and wonder, when are we arguing simply for the sake of arguing? In Rome, people were divided over many silly things, including, as you'll notice as you read the beginning of chapter 14, what types of food should be eaten, or what types of days should be celebrated as holy. I'm surprised there aren't more kids who gravitate toward Romans 2, which says one person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. Imagine the toddler revolts that could occur. My faith is strong, so I will not eat those vegetables my mom put in front of me. Honestly, though, I think Paul maybe wants us to laugh at this. He's pointing out that the Romans, just like us, they argued ridiculously sometimes. They argued for the sake of arguing. But later, here in verse 7, Paul wants us to remember, for none of us lives for ourselves alone, and none of us dies for ourselves alone. We aren't in this life figuring out how to argue because of ourselves and for the sake of our arguments. We are in this life because of Jesus and for the sake of each other. Remember what we heard in chapter 13. It's not that all laws or rules are bad, but the greatest of them all is love. So Paul continues here by saying, if we live for the Lord. And if we die for the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. Today, as you read chapter 14, verses 1 through 12, I invite you to think about these couple of questions. Number 1, when have you argued just for the sake of arguing? Be honest. Look back at those heated moments and ask yourself if that was at the core of your passion. And number 2, what would it look like to set aside arguments for the sake of someone else? Be honest with yourself today. I know it's not easy. And then join us together as we talk about the second half of this chapter, chapter 14, and we wonder what this new community might look like when we set arguments aside. Thanks, everybody.